Hey mom, how's it going?
Lindsay, I am doing well. I got all my steps in this morning. I'm hoping that I'm beating you as we start today because I know as we end the day, I probably will not beat you, but I'm having a great start to the day. How's your day going?
It's going good. I was just on not Twitter. I was on LinkedIn yesterday talking with Joy Sharp and Jeff White about, getting your steps in and getting a little under desk treadmill. So I'm not there yet today, but I'm only at 1500. So I'll be at 10,000 by the end of the day though. Don't you worry.
Listen, the challenge is on. I'm hoping I can stay ahead of you, right? Yeah,
Yeah, we need to do an agency focused challenge soon. That'd be
we do.
fun.
We do.
Well, our topic today that we're going to chat about is AI and how some agencies are utilizing AI. And we've been asking our friends who we think are cool, like, hey, who do you think is cool who uses AI? And honestly, one of the coolest insurance people in South Carolina that I know, David Watson, recommended Landry Fields over to us as someone who he thought was cool using AI. So we're super pumped to have you on today. How's it going?
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, and give a shout out to David. Yeah, he didn't have to do that, and he's lying through his teeth a little bit there, I'm sure. But 10,000 steps, that's a lot. I mean, I saw Carrie your post earlier today with the picture of the treadmill, and I've got one sitting in my office, and I'm like, man, I haven't pulled that thing out in like a month and a half. I've got to get back on that thing, especially since I know, you and Lindsay are doing that. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
challenge is on, my friend. You got to pull
Yeah.
it out
Yeah.
and dust it off. It's almost like a guilty thing when you walk in and you see that sitting there. You're like, oh, I guess I need to pull that under my desk and actually use it because what the heck am I doing? Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I
Hmm.
think the tough part is when you put it away, then it's like tough to get back out. We have like a little closet in our condo that's supposed to be a storage closet, but I converted it into a podcast room, which I'm not in it. Obviously, I don't actually use it for podcasting anymore, but I keep my like standing desk and my treadmill set up in there so
Hmm.
that once a day I at least go and walk at minimum a mile while I'm doing something. But it's the hardest when my fiance wants to use it and puts the treadmill away. It's always like 3 days before I get it set back up because that's just an extra step. So
We always talk about
you
time
definitely should.
blocking with insurance, so I just need to start time blocking. Be like, these are the days. If I'm not going to be able, no, I'm not going to be able to hit it every day. I just need to be like, here's the days that it works in with basically my schedule type of thing to do.
No
Yeah,
doubt. No
absolutely.
doubt.
Well, I'll be texting you. Did you get your steps in? I'm annoying like that. I'm just kidding. I won't
She
text you.
is. She's not lying, just so you know.
I do
Like, she
that to my
absolutely
mom,
is.
but I
If
wouldn't
we
do
take
that
it
to
up a
you.
notch, then we're going to put on a weighted vest like my wife does, which I need to do too, and also do it with a weighted vest.
Yeah, I tried to go to Target and buy a weighted vest this weekend, actually. I wanted to start my rucking journey,
Okay,
but they were sold out. So I unfortunately didn't get one, but I will be on that train soon.
there you go.
And now that you reminded me, I'm probably going to Amazon one later today. All right. So give us a little bit of background on you. So
Yeah.
you own Nova Insurance and you do a podcast. Would love to just hear how you got in the industry and kind of what you're doing.
My story in the industry usually is more of a cringe scenario, I think, for most agency owners, and because it's not a traditional path by any means. Was in the world of commercial sales for 10 plus years after thinking I was moving to Nashville for music. And I'm grateful that that did not work out because life on the road, the taste that I got of it would have just pretty much sucked if, coming from the standpoint of having kids and wife and family now that I'm much more happier just being a home guy kind of thing. But had family in the insurance industry and decided to kind of take the it's really I would say stupid. I think a lot of people would say, but I'm grateful I did. Had a lot of blind ambition, when you're 33, and this was 6 years ago. And was like, hey, well, if I'm going to go into insurance, I'm just going to open my own agency right off the gate, which I know is not recommended, but really ever. It's never recommended type of scenario. But got some direct contracts with some big carriers that really gave me the training tools from the insurance side of things. I had a lot of experience in running businesses and managing and so forth like that in sales. I just didn't know the specifics of insurance and in that kind of capacity. So kind of like was kind of walking before I ran type of scenario early on, obviously, and just kind of stuck to the home and auto side of things, but wanted to really grow into that commercial side that I was familiar with from a sales perspective. And so over the last 2 years, we've made that transition to really being, at this point, at least usually around 50-50 as far as personal lines and commercial lines written. I'd love to get the book to at least 50-50, if not more so, leaning commercial side of things. So, but yeah, the agency is 6 years old now. Trying to, so We've already hit a couple thresholds I didn't think would be possible that quickly. And a lot of times, honestly, AI has been a kind of a bit of a catalyst from this perspective of helping, hey, I've got to achieve and get to where I'm going. I can't cut corners, but what are ways we can get there quicker? And so, out of more of a necessity type of scenario, it was kind of good timing as far as when I entered the industry with that
Yeah.
new world.
Yeah, tell me a little bit before we jump straight into AI. I would love to hear a little bit about your podcast as well.
Mm,
Obviously, like we love having our podcast, just getting to talk and get to know agency owners. It
yeah.
keeps like our thumb on the pulse of the industry and what agencies are actually doing. But what is your podcast about and what does it do for you?
Yeah.
What's the
And
purpose of
there's
it?
probably an AI tie here, obviously, with what I utilize and how I do it. But when it's starting out, it's like I don't have a ton of marketing dollars. I have very few dollars when I create a scratch agency where I'm my first policy sold as me type of scenario. And you're trying to feed wife. And at that point, 2 kids. And we had our third kid literally the day before COVID hit, March 12th. So he just turned 5. So that's kind of like how I know exactly how long it's been every time he has a birthday. But
Oh,
I was
that
like,
poor
I don't
kid,
have,
that poor
yeah.
child. Like, let's
Hey,
redo that, right?
I will tell you though, the meal train was awesome because people would just like send in like Uber Eats, like nice Uber Eats, and we
Nice.
weren't getting like the meatloafs and casseroles and stuff like that. Everybody was just so, but
That's so funny. Anyway, sorry.
but
Yeah.
no. So the podcast, I don't have a lot of marketing dollars early on. This could be a lot of people type of scenario, or where do I throw my marketing dollars? And I'm like, I feel like I'm not really getting a return or know how I'm getting a return. And there's definitely great ways to do that with marketing dollars and so forth, but I'm like, hey, I've got to figure out a way to start, continually generate business. And I come from a world where, I'm used to being in front of a microphone due to my high school, college, and early marriage days type of scenario. Not usually on a video camera. That was a different thing for me. Uh, so I was like, let's just start. I kept having all these real estate investors, obviously. And so I got into this world of real estate investing as far as clientele's pretty heavily. And I was like, I want to get into this world myself, just more from a tax perspective. And that's a whole different conversation, obviously. I was like, I want to get a couple of rental properties and so forth. And so, but I was like, I don't know the first thing about real estate at all. And so I was like, I need to start a podcast. I'm just going to start interviewing local business owners, local entrepreneurs. Year one was specific into real estate only. Since then, I've broadened that. And we're now just started season 4. But the idea is, I think that local podcasting is still very vastly underutilized from that perspective. And I think in my mind, it's kind of the new local newspaper that hasn't really kind of picked up, I think, truly from people thinking that podcasting is dead or that, oh, it's too late to jump into that game. And you're like, okay, maybe on the national market scale side of things, it might be a little bit harder to kind of find your niche or stand out. But from a local perspective, that's what I'm saying. It's still wide open, in my opinion. So created
Yeah.
this podcast called Keys to the Commonwealth, and it's basically just Kentucky specific as far as that goes with entrepreneurs, business owners, and especially property owners, and just started having people on to kind of explain how do I do the property investing thing was originally how I started. It was audio only at first, and it was great. And so just from that perspective, I started utilizing it in a way to just prospect my clientele from a commercial standpoint that I wanted to write their business. So they'd come in, they tell their story. I'd ask them questions because I'm trying to learn the real estate things at the same time.
Mhm.
And from that, got into real estate investing myself. But at the same time, I'm getting usually 80 to 90%, depending, sometimes it's a long play there. Maybe a year later, the guest comes back, but usually 80 to 90% of our guests at this point either refer to client or become our client type of scenario. So at that point, it's like shooting fish in a barrel with, I'm just going to continue to prospect either great connections that it'd be good to just know and that could introduce me to other people or people who have great businesses that would want to write. And so year 2, I was like, I got to just hit the camera button on this thing and figure this part out. We are now sitting in the brand new recording studio and full-time podcast room, as we used to have to like put everything, switch everything around the conference room. But it can be very simple. And I think that usually people mostly, especially when we pair the technology that we could have and the cost with, and how little it takes in that sense to actually do a podcast that people don't realize, but also getting the content out there. AI has played a huge role in that type of perspective. Because again,
Absolutely.
not only did I have a shortage of money, probably for marketing purposes, I had a shortage of obviously time too, because
Sure.
when you're and we have 2 staff members, 2 other agents, and hoping to grow that by 2 or 3 more by the end of the year. Time is at a premium for sure as well. And so I don't have all this time to go do a bunch of editing, all this stuff. So I got over to the camera stuff and then got a few, I was like, I'm going to commit to this. I've got to do this. My wife thought it was going to be the stupidest thing, which I get, and we still laugh about it. And she'll tell you that. But I remember I bought like the Rodecaster Pro, which is probably more so than what people need. But
Yeah.
I'm come from that world of pro audio, and I was like, no, I want the best stuff or something like that. So I
Okay.
remember I bought it so that it would sit there in the corner of my office. So I'd be like, I know I have to do the podcast. It's sitting right there. I've invested into this thing. I got to commit to it. So,
Hmm.
but I quickly found out how easy it was to have people on the podcast in that sense. And so, people are so open to just say, hey, yeah, I'll come tell my story. I mean, because it's the rule of reciprocity in the sense of, hey, I'm not really asking anything truly in return other than 30 minutes of your time. But 30 minutes of your time to tell your story and really just me publicly kind of market you as the guest versus 30 minutes of your time sitting down for coffee, you're going to get a whole lot better
Sure.
return of people saying
Absolutely.
yes to the podcast, honestly. And so the amount of business owners and notable people we've been able to just have come literally walk through our front door is insane type of scenario that you would never, ever get to just come walk through your front door and typically in that capacity.
Yeah.
So, but then on the AI side of things, there's a couple out there. I'll just mention Opus.pro or Opus Clips is what we utilize. But it's the idea that, we hit record on the video and everything, we schedule, and then I have a person that just, it doesn't cost me much to kind of just have it scheduled. She puts the full video together really quick. AI that she's got literally chops up all the screenshots or the screen angles.
Hmm.
So that doesn't even take that much time. We upload it to Opus Pro, and it will find, and there's a couple of them out there now that do this, but it'll find all the different like 30, 60-second clips, auto chop it all up, rank them in order. Here's the best ones we think we have.
Hmm.
Auto put the translations on the bottom, the emojis, even B-roll, video B-roll, it'll auto add and stuff like that.
That's
And
awesome.
so it's just like, hey, she's like, which 7 clips or whatever you want. I say, I want these. And then she goes and schedules them for posting type of scenario. So literally
Lovely.
from
Yeah.
perspective, I'm in it for maybe per month $300 or something like that, including the fee of like getting that edited. 30 minutes my time 2 times a month for podcast guests, and then like I said, then I've got content for an entire month that's posting every other day, and we'll get 12, probably average 12 to 13,000 impressions a month off of that. And so for me, that's our billboard, right? Like you put your face on a billboard. I'm sure that still works a little bit. I see guys that here, local agents that have that, but I'd much rather be more even more personable in that situation. And so for me, it's like, I don't even care if people in the community really stop and watch the clips or really listen to the podcast. My goal is the relationships with the people I have on that I'm prospecting, and two, that they just see my face plastered everywhere on social media, on every platform. And so eventually be like, I have an insurance need. I'm just going to call no insurance in that sense. So
Yeah.
It's almost
that was
like the
kind of the
power of
basis of all that.
suggestion, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know
Hmm.
I've seen this person. So I live in Hilton Head, and there is a husband wife real estate team that does a podcast, and they literally highlight places in Hilton Head. And I live here. So we've only lived here 4 years, but they highlight places that I've not been to. And what I
Mm,
find is I search for her to find, like, she highlighted something and I saw it. It was a quick reel, but we're actually contemplating moving. And
okay.
who do you think I'm going to call? I'm going to
Is this
absolutely
Absolutely.
news to
call her. I
Lindsay?
feel
Is
like,
this news to Lindsay here that you're possibly moving
no,
here?
like, she knows
No.
that it's possible that
Yeah.
but the funny thing is, I feel like I know her. Like, I've never met
Yeah.
this woman in my life, but
Exactly.
that's the thing. And honestly, that's one of the reasons we do a podcast. I have lots of people call me who say, I've listened to, 15, 20 of your podcasts, and they'll say something personally about me or about Lindsay. And I'm thinking, we overshare, but we don't
Mm,
overshare. It's just people get to know us on the
yes.
podcast. It's an incredibly powerful tool, and it doesn't actually take a lot of time, and it allows you to, it hits a lot of different reasons. But I love that you're highlighting people in your community because it makes them feel special too. Like,
Right.
that's the
Hmm.
reality, right?
And I want to
Yeah.
Sure.
pick up on that word authentic that you mentioned there. And that's obviously people kind of are drawn to that aspect of being authentic and seeing that kind of aspect of you. But I think in a reverse AI scenario, obviously we use AI to like do a lot of the heavy lifting and do all this and post it and get it chopped up. But at the same time, as AI continues to take off, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about it with the idea of like, we won't really know what's real anymore type of scenario as
Right.
far as videos or audio or others like
Well,
that.
that's
So
already
that's where I
true.
think the being authentic and having podcasts and conversations like this is going to be hard to truly duplicate in that sense. So it'll make you stand out even
Agreed.
more from that perspective as well, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Absolutely. And I think things we don't know that things are real or not is already happening, right? As you're scrolling through social media, half the videos you're seeing nowadays are fake. They're just not real. Even David Crothers, and there's nothing against this, love David Crothers, he's doing great things, but he has his little AI bot thing that sometimes I scroll and I'm like, wait, was that David or was that, I don't remember what he named it. He named
It's
it
really
something
good.
really
I can't
funny.
remember what he named it
Yeah,
either,
I
but
But it
forget.
looks
Yeah.
just like him and it sounds like him. Like, I have no idea if it's him or not. And it's, for him, great way to create content. But you're right. The videos of actually him are going to stand out so much more now.
Yeah.
Because there are those AI videos of him out there as well.
There's a lot of people joking because when he first posted it, it didn't blink. Like whatever clip he did
Yeah.
for his original, it didn't blink. It's like, man, your eyes dry. It was pretty funny. So yeah. So AI's here. It's not going away. I hate that it's a buzzword. I hate that it feels like every time you open a magazine or you do whatever, someone's talking about the impact of AI. But the problem is it's not going away and it is going to be leveraged and it's going to continue to morph and change. We were just at a conference, INA conference, and Chris Klein, who is the head of the Big I, what is it, Lindsay? Sorry.
The technology.
Yeah, ACT. Yeah, sorry, I
ACT,
lost the
yeah.
word for a second. That's not good. He's not going to like that I just did that. But anyway, he gave this
Sorry,
presentation that was talking about the impact of technology. And he showed a graph that said, what is the adoption rate to get to, I think, 1 billion users worldwide or whatever the number was. But LinkedIn, it took 7 years and 3 months. ChatGPT took weeks or days.
Yeah.
Reels took like hours to get there. Like it's not going away. This is the life we're in. And there's a very, very steep curve and everybody's worried about what is this going to look like. My feeling is COVID, when your son was born, created this gap of those people that are willing to adapt and change in an industry that is historically not willing to adapt and change, or we didn't need to adapt and change. That's really the answer. COVID created where we did. Technology and the pace at which it's going is creating an even more need because society is changing. Like we want immediate information about where do I want to go. I'm not looking at a newspaper. Like I haven't looked at a newspaper in, I can't remember how long. I'm going to find it and it's going to be very, very small bites and the things that I want to consume, not reading an entire thing. So tell me what that looks like for you in an agency that's 6 years old that didn't have the baggage of 50 years of this is the way we've always done it. What does that look like today for you?
Yeah, I'd say probably in a two. We'll kind of talk about it in two ways. One, and what's called the term generative AI, and if people don't know these terms, they will by the end of this podcast for sure, and I'll explain it. Versus agentic AI, which is going to be more where we're going. So, kind of talking about where we're at right now, which kind of a lot of people understand at least some concepts of it, versus also where we're going, which I think where we're going is the part that is an even greater separator that people don't really have an idea how truly impactful. Like they think AI and ChatGPT and stuff like that has been pretty impactful, and it has. But the world of agentic AI is going to be even that much more at a scale as far as a separator. So, back when I started the agency, there was an idea, like I said, little funds and so forth. It used to be a scenario over the last 10 years, which you can attest to, where, the buzzwords, the agencies that were pushing the boundaries and really capitalizing on revenue and so forth like that were heavy automation, right? And so getting that automation was, and you kind of, there was a lot to that automation process and finding ways to automate, and you would have to build these complex systems out with Zapier or whatnot, right? And so we're all familiar with that, but a lot of times you were basically held at bay by the idea of the API that the carriers or companies or whatever you're using was limiting and giving to you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in some ways, let me get back to the idea of ChatGPT, where in theory, the education used to be a premium and a cost for education. You either had to go to college to get the education or really spend a lot of time into books, et cetera. And like it or not, the one way that ChatGPT has changed the world is not only quicker time in doing things, but the just idea of knowledge and education is no longer at a premium anymore in that sense. You can learn anything. These AI or ChatGPT, I mean, it knows insurance better than probably 90% of agents type of scenario. I mean, I'm sure I've admittedly been like, what is the specific difference between this and this? And it can explain it, or this form, and so forth. So even from an educational standpoint, we're already utilizing it in that perspective. So talking about generative AI first, generative AI idea is the idea that you still are kind of using a very handheld human or human handheld scenario with the AI. Like I'm still prompting AI to do this, or via a connection and API, I am still using Zapier to connect and do stuff like, we have our Google reviews that automatically the review response gets auto posted once a review is left. So ChatGPT, that's a simple one for if everybody wants to start on a simple one, just start there. Don't respond to your Google reviews, but do it via AI and ChatGPT rather than having to manually do it. And it obviously sets you up for better return having those responses and an interaction there. But generative AI idea is the idea that I as a human have to handhold the AI for what I want it to do, right? And I think a good analogy that we all have to get wrap our mind around is the idea that in this new world of AI, we're all going to become, if I'm thinking about a symphony, we're all going to become more and more of the conductor of these symphonies, right? Meaning I don't necessarily need a violin player in anymore, but I, as a conductor still of the orchestra, still need to know the capabilities of the violin, what its parameters and boundaries are, what part it plays in the grand scheme of the orchestra type of scenario. So I can't blindly just be ignorant as a whole, but still have to know what I'm trying to get out of it type of scenario. So that makes sense a little bit what I'm trying to explain there. And that doesn't mean I'm going to replace every single person or with an AI in the symphony. I mean, you could, but at the end of the day, I think we all realize that there's going to be a marriage here. It's not going to be just completely one or the other type of scenario. So that's more of what I'm talking about with generative AI. And we'll talk about ways I'm doing that, but just kind of to kind of preface what I was talking about with agentic AI and separating what that means. Agentic AI is going to be the concept that AI agents, and we're not talking AI insurance agents. We're talking about AI agents, which that term's been thrown around a lot. And a lot of times when you see it right now, it doesn't really mean what it actually is going to mean here by the end of the year. But the idea of agentic AI is the idea that the AI is kind of has its own autonomy to do what it's tasked to do. So it can go into websites, it can log in, it can add things to a cart, it can per se approve this checkout, yes, etc. So there's a new one to kind of at least watch a demonstration of is maybe ChatGPT's operator video that came out probably about a month ago now, maybe a little less. There's a couple other versions of that, but that's going to be where we're headed in the sense that in reality, I kind of expect to have an agency where usually traditionally you would have way more service staff than you would agents typically. But my mindset is I don't think that's going to be the future. I think the future is going to, and I'm saying even VEs in that sense. And I'm not saying I'm going to use a VA anymore. I'm not going to use one anymore. And we have one, but I don't think we're going to need them at scale like we had been utilizing to replace certain tasks. And that's been great. But the idea is a lot of times, if we're really being truthful, it's a matter of just, I need to move this information or this document or this over to this system and then do this. And a lot of times we were still using humans because we were still limited by the world of APIs. And if the APIs didn't allow us to do that, we still had to have a human do that. Well, the world of agentic AI is I no longer have to have a human do it. I can just say, hey, AI bot, this is your job to every day go in, download all these, I don't know, PDFs, etc. Go find the account they're supposed to be in, save them to there, whatever it is. It can go cross-platform. It is no longer limited by the API, which is a scary world and concept because I'm sure, especially from a carrier side of things, they're like, well, crap, we've kind of, I don't know. There's a lot of security stuff with that I get. But again, that's just the idea of where we're going. And so finding and balancing the capabilities of what's secure in that. And we can definitely talk about some of that aspect as far as what's secure, what's not secure versus, again, where we're going. But I at least wanted to kind of framework where we're kind of at, where we're going, at least off the top here.
Can I ask you a clarifying question on I'm going to completely botch this word, but did you call it agnetic AI?
Agentic, agents.
Agentic. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Agentic AI.
Yeah.
How is agentic AI then different than RPA systems? Like a robotic automated
right.
process. Yeah. Because it basically is a bot, but it's a bot powered by AI.
It's a bot that just can think for itself like a human, I guess. So you don't even necessarily have to map out the exact steps like, more RPA. You're saying when this happens, then you go to here and you could kind of give it some of that type of scenario. but
Mhm.
you're not really having to connect the dots. It's smart enough to think for itself. I heard the other day that the baseline of AI on the IQ test is now like 120, and I think the average human is like a 100 or a little bit over that. So I mean, the baseline AI is already smarter than the
Average
average
human.
human. Just give it another year or two, and it's going to be like
Which is
Yeah,
smarter than anyone.
terrifying a
absolutely.
little bit. Listen,
Yeah.
I can think of a million great ways to use this, but then I can also think of the responsibility
Mm.
that and how it's used, why it's used, when it's used, that is the part that's a little scary, right? And I hate
Who's
to be the one
insuring
on
these
this
bot
call saying
companies?
that, but it depends on how you train it, then what it
Yeah.
actually thinks is the right thing to do, correct?
Yeah, and let's talk about that part of it real quick, because I think in our industry especially needs to be kind of plastered as like the rule number one. If you're using a free AI thing or the free version of
Yeah.
ChatGPT or something like that, there's a reason it's free. Don't be
Mm-hmm.
putting in deck pages or any kind of information, and utilize most of the time with our information. It's not really like super, pertinent information that's going to get us in major trouble necessarily. But again, if it's free, there's a reason it's free. Don't be using the free versions. Go ahead and be paying for versions. But all at the same time, most of us have a lot of it already at our fingertips that we're not even utilizing and knowing about. And so I spoke about this at Indie Tech, but the idea is most of us are all, as we all know, most agencies are now on Google Workspace or Microsoft Outlook most of the time, right? Most of us are on those two platforms. Well, those two platforms have the stuff built in now. And usually, I don't know if Microsoft's Copilot is, so Microsoft's is Copilot, Google is called Gemini, right? I don't know if Copilot's like an extra add-on cost right now with Microsoft. I don't know the answer to that. Gemini with Google Workspace, and I'm on Google Workspace, so I know a little bit more about that one, is used to be an additional fee add-on. And you're like, oh, great. I don't want to pay another $25 per person or whatnot. But they have simply just in the last 6 to 8 months just said, all right, well, now it's just a part of everybody's subscription. So we now have
Nice.
access to it. I've opened that up in certain capacities to it. So we're already utilizing that, and we can definitely talk a little bit how I'm doing that too. But that's something that everyone already has for the most part, and they probably are not either utilizing it or playing around with it. And so the idea of everything that we've been thinking from ChatGPT, OpenAI, a lot of those capabilities from just a general generative AI scenario are already at our fingertips in that and built in that capacity.
Talking about the things that are already out here and people have or maybe are using or maybe overusing. I was on a call the other day and everybody had their own, whatever it is,
I know where you're going with this.
note taker in
Yeah.
so they're all first to the meeting and they're all last out of the meeting, and you get like 16 versions of the notes sent to you because every member of it's kind of funny. Like I was like,
That is
it's at some
funny.
point we're not going to meetings. Our note takers are going to go to the meetings and just tell us what the other note taker said, I guess. Like it's
Well,
crazy
I'd
stuff.
say eventually our AI avatar fake person that has our voice will go to the meeting, and
100%.
Yeah.
I'm not
So
lying either.
let's do like a rapid fire. What
Yeah.
are the top 5 things that you today are using AI for? And what problem is it solving? You got to tell me the problem first and what you're using. How about that?
I would say a lot of times the problem in general is just time, for sure,
Okay.
which we all are trying to get back as much of that. So obviously we talked about, I would say number one from a marketing perspective of just utilizing all the things I can to blast that stuff out there. And you could utilize that in even more perspectives with AI with, whether it's, photos or videos. Hey Gen, HEYGEN is another one I'm going to be kind of starting to utilize, where you could kind of create, if you want to do educational videos, either internally with staff or with just educational videos that maybe you don't want to sit there in front of the camera, or you're like, you want to create your own fake version of you could do so. But that's another way to, and a lot of times there's a company called 11 Labs, the number 11 Labs, and that's the big one that most usually are using for a voice scenario. So if you wanted to have your actual voice too, you could put that through there. It would create your own a fake voice version, and then that you could marry that to the avatar in HeyGen type of scenario. But
Cool.
you could just use stock stuff and create a lot of educational content, and here's and utilizing that. So maybe you don't want to put your face out there, but the idea is that we're going to become more and more comfortable with AI type of stuff and so forth. So one, because we already are used to the fact that there's phone stuff out there, and that's maybe some have tried it. I think it's a little bit ahead of its time still. I haven't pulled that trigger yet, but eventually, yeah, you're probably gonna have an AI bot answering the phone, answering questions, etc. But I think as a generation, if you're calling somebody, would you rather talk to an AI bot that's kind of like able to give you either the answer or get you to the right place pretty quickly, rather than having press 5 for this and you have to it's like, no, I don't want to do that. Just give me the AI bot that can probably give me the information or get me to the right place. We're all going to be accustomed to that type of scenario in some respects. So just thinking of it as a turnoff and that people don't want it, the reality is it's going to become a normal thing. So that perspective from marketing purposes, I think from that, I'm going to piggyback to number 2 of what we're trying to currently build out. And a lot of things is more from a time perspective. I still haven't fully really gotten done, or we've just started because of a scenario of me just being such a small agency. I'm working myself out of the producing role that I've got that is hindering me a little bit right now. But from an educational standpoint as well internally. So I think from a training perspective too, we've got some companies out there that are great at insurance training and they cost a fee and so forth like that, which I get. But the realization now with, Canva is one that I know a lot of people are utilizing from, pictures or just different things within internally, but they also now have a whole training program platform where you can kind of create your own training schedule and assign it to them, et cetera. So using AI, you could almost recreate some of these courses, like what is D&O EPLI and these coverages. And you could literally, in a matter of, less than a couple minutes, via the prompt, and you have to be very descriptive on the prompt, but you could create kind of an educational course on this for people that are trying to, grow in commercial insurance knowledge as far as your agents or your commercial CSRs and so forth. Create that, dump it into Canva, create a course, or even I have Google. So where some of us started exploring maybe just doing the Google, I'm totally blanking on what it's called, but there's one for Google Classroom. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
And so I forgot. I was like, oh yeah, I've already got Google Classroom as a part of my Google thing. Maybe we just do it there, because my kids use Google Classroom all the time. I had no idea it was a part of my actual Google Workspace subscription. So from a training perspective too, we're trying to build that out, and could really, honestly, my vision here in the next probably 48 months is if we could have a new agent, even that has never done insurance, and have, the first 6 months, this whole program between licensing, between education, between this, that, or the other, that could put that person on a much higher success rate and knowledge base and support behind them than was ever possible, or was ever possible without having to pay a lot of financial fee and burden. And it would always still be there, just in my own ecosystem. So bringing that educational standpoint into our system is going to be, as I would say, number 2. That's going to be a great, awesome thing for us to build out. I would say 3. So I'm going to talk about custom GPTs. Some people will understand that. Some people will not. So if we're talking ChatGPT, I'll start there because people are more familiar with that. There's a thing called custom GPTs. What that is it's kind of like a custom pre-prompted thing. So rather than me having to go through the prompt of this is who you are, this is who your responsibility is, this bot, I need this question answered, blah, blah, blah. It's more of a way to already have that structured so the AI knows what its responsibility is and so forth. A lot of times you can upload documents that can help feed its brain, is the way I would put it, to kind of understand what some of the knowledge base it needs to answer said questions or do said task. And again, we're talking generative AI still at this point. But within Copilot, I forget what Copilot's called, but within Gemini, they call it custom gems. You can create these custom things as well. So from a standpoint of a couple of ways we're automatically doing it is, one, feeding it. We have one where it's fed just all the information from like SIC codes, work comp codes, et cetera. Because a lot of times you're like, crap, I don't know what code this is. And you can be like, hey, I've got this business. What are the codes that it could fall under in this? Or what is the code for, I don't know, this state that I'm not working in the state all the time, but I need to know. So you can fill that from the NAICS stuff and get all that information, feed its brain into the custom GPT, have all that information so I can just ask it right there. So in a lot of ways, we're starting to utilize it from a personal assistant. So I'm like trying to build it out. So like, don't ask me, go ask the bot, because it's right there. And we, for so long, I think some of the best agencies out there, which was great, they would have such great, fantastic kind of inner office website type of scenarios, right? Like, so internally they would have websites that were fully built out with all this stuff, which was awesome. And I don't think that's fully going to go away, but I think there's a lot of details with that was having that from a time perspective, and it was kind of cumbersome to do, that you can easily just put into that type of thing. And I'll expand upon that in a minute.
Well, can I say one thing about that? Because as you're talking, my brain went to, well, I can Google that. So why do I need to build this thing and be whatever? But I answered my own question. So in case someone was like, hey man, I can Google a NAICS code, no problem. I don't need to go through the
Yeah.
hassle of creating a closed chat GPT and feeding a brain and all this stuff. Well, the reality is what's on the internet isn't always accurate. And whatever's put out there in an open chat GPT or whatever, it can hallucinate. If you're
Yes.
feeding it, you are making sure
Or
that the
hallucinating less
information,
and less, but yes.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
Well, the other
if
thing, sorry, go ahead, Mom.
but if you're feeding it, you're now creating a database that is more
Standard.
powerful and it has all of the information that you need it to be, and make sure that your team is actually utilizing it. And I know the NAICS code isn't a perfect example, but that's where my brain went. Like,
Yeah.
why would I need to do this? It literally now exactly the data set upon which you want your team making decisions, and stays up to date as well. Like if you're
Or if you have certain
continuously feeding it, right?
Yeah, or if you have certain carriers, like Erie's a big carrier for me.
Yeah.
They have like, some of these carriers have their own codes. Stupid.
Yeah,
But,
stupid.
like I can just feed all those codes in there
Yeah.
too. So it can also give me
Sure.
some of those types of things at the same time. So that's just an elementary one. Leslie, what'd you have?
The other thing that, agency owners should think about, and this is something that I thought about with my time at Indium, was if your staff is constantly searching things on Google, there's no historic, like, hey, how many times did they search if we have a market for a dog groomer, which everybody has a market for a dog groomer, but take my example. If you don't have a carrier that can write that line of business for you or that type of business for you, as an agency owner, if there's, 20 searches for it, go out and get a carrier who can write that type of business because it's obviously coming in the door.
Right. If
Mhm.
I'm on Google, you're not tracking it. Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really helpful in those ways, and to be able to see like, hey, are there things we're missing that's
Yeah.
not getting documented because it's those, annotative type of things that no one's going to write down, I searched this, I searched this, I searched this, but that's going to track it for you, and you're able to actually extract the data and say, hey, maybe we need more training here, or hey, maybe we need some access in this area, or hey, the other thing you could do with it is you could go and say, hey, Erie, I've been like, here are all the NACE codes that we have on our table. Which ones do you actually want to look at before I have my staff go and, enter it all in? Or, hey, why is this not working? What's specifically about these NACE codes that we've sent to you? So I think there's some strategic opportunity in using a ChatGPT 2, or I guess not specifically a ChatGPT, but like a trained AI in that way that can help you leverage some additional relationships.
Yeah, I would expand upon that with a couple more. I think that are elementary ones that people can utilize, or because the reality is with AI, we're retooling, retraining our brains of what's even capable or possible, right? And so I a lot of times just say, like, somebody will ask, well, what is this? If this is this possible? Or I'll even ask myself, like, "Yeah, wait, is this possible?" And I'll be like, oh wait, maybe I should just ask the AI if this is possible. You could, don't, I think people really
Mhm.
realize too, like, just ask it. Can it do this yet? Can it not? It'll tell you probably. Pretty
Absolutely
accurate.
will.
But a couple more areas of like these custom GPT type of scenarios is, rather than almost always having kind of like a Google open, like we're all used to kind of having email and chat now type of scenario. But I think in some ways we're going to add a third one to that, of like kind of almost having the AI window open type of scenario. So not really needing the Google anymore. I'm like, I've got a question about coverage. I've got a question about this. And I'm going to launch into this a bit more of what we're doing and what people could at a base level do, which is think about policy jackets all the time. I mean, how many of us hate the idea of like, crap, I've got this one specific question on, is this particular thing covered or whatnot? And I'm going to have to go scour this policy jacket. Well, the AI can scour it for you. So we're building out too, where, with carriers, if we've got the policy jackets, especially more commercial perspective as well, of just saying, hey, here's a policy jacket, or here's a bank of policy jackets from a lot of the standard stuff. You just go in there and ask the bot, it'll find it, it'll reference where it is, find it for you in a matter of a few seconds. And I mean, the time alone that saves you from at least 15 minutes, maybe to 5 seconds, that right there is huge. I mean, talk about hourly pay, time
Yeah.
savings right there too. So that's another one we're kind of like build out. The Again, I'm not on the Copilot side of things with Microsoft Teams, so I don't know about that. But there's some parts that are not quite where they need to be that I know they're going to get to. So, for example, the only frustrating part with the custom gems right now is that I have to upload actual files. I can't just point it to it. Like in my mind, I'm like,
You can't point
and
it
I
to a
think
link.
I can't point it to like a full folder is what I'm trying to get at yet.
Oh, got
You
it.
can kind of do that maybe with ChatGPT, but again, you're kind of a few other steps. But just again, perspective, like by the end of the year, I think this will be, they kind of just made some of these changes. So a lot of that's the other thing about AI too, is it's changing so rapidly of like this one's now this, and we've
Absolutely.
got a new version of this. And it's like this whole war now between the different companies getting the best AI out there. But eventually it should be a scenario here where I can just have a folder linked into that brain where it's feeding all that stuff type of scenario, and it'll read Excel files and so forth. So another standpoint, the third way we're doing it is we're on number 4 here. So another way we're kind of utilizing it is within chat. I think eventually the idea we've gone, which is great. I love interoffice chat, whether it's Google Chat, which we use, or you've got Slack and so forth, which a lot of people use, that we're used to using that. But there's going to be a scenario where speaking a little bit now, and I'll explain how we're doing it now to where I think it's going, which is the idea of like we should be able to have AI bots within the chat that are also going out, finding this information, referencing it maybe in our OneDrives or our Google Drives and so forth like that, and finding it and just talking with it right there as well. I mean, how cool would that be, right?
Yeah, I'm with you that there is going to be a, very soon future. It's actually my existence right now that I have my email, my Teams, and my Chat GPT. It's not a closed Chat GPT yet, but I actually have a folder on my computer called TLDR, Too Long Didn't Read, and it has all 3 of those tabs, and I just keep it open. I collapse it when I don't want to see it, and I open it up when I need something from it.
Yeah.
And that is my everyday existence, that I have those 3 tabs and my Notion open at all times.
I mean, the idea of Googling something is going to become a past tense scenario. We're not going to, people don't realize we're not going to keep Googling things. We're going to ask AI.
What's crazy is, I
because
lived through a time that you didn't Google. So it's just the evolution of what you now do in order to find the information.
I may look young, but I lived in that time too, Carey, here. Okay.
I don't know. I will tell you, the other day we were on a podcast and we were talking about remote work in this particular podcast, and Lindsay dropped the bombshell that she's never actually commuted to a job. She's never had to get up and get dressed and drive to an office. And I'm like, what? And then she's like, actually, Mom, that's true for most of my peers. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Wow. That's so crazy.
The times are changing is what I'd say. And this is
I've used fast. DOS. Okay. I'm old enough to I've used DOS.
You have not. You're lying.
No, I don't
swear.
Believe I swear.
That's really funny.
That's where I that's what I say to kind of put a reference of how far back I go.
Well, I think that we gave the listeners some great ideas of things that they could use AI for. Plenty of different things all throughout this episode. There were like 50 different examples.
If I could, just one more thing would be the policy scraping of like, I've got 300 pages of commercial policy. I need to know the locations, the co-insurance, the deductibles, the limits, all the different coverages they've added, whether it's EPLI, crime, whatever. And again, don't just put it in the free one, but we have one where it's built out and says, this is your responsibility to give me VIN numbers, etc., based upon the prompt. And then it just spits all that back out to us after we upload it to Gemini.
Unbelievable time savings. The reality is you're competing against people that aren't using this. Like the people that are using it and the people that aren't using it, their workflow is completely different. Their time is different. Their capacity is different. Their value is different. I hate to make it financial, but it is. Like you're building valuable agencies, and how you use your human capital is changing. It just has no choice but to change. The reality is we could talk about this topic for days and never scratch the surface, but I love that you came on and shared how a 6-year-old agency is using AI and how we just need to think differently about this. Like you have to have an open mind, or other people around you will, and you're going to be competing against those people. Like that's the reality, right?
Yeah. So that's right.
100%.
Anyway, well, thank you for being our guest, Landry.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure. And keep up the great work, man. I'll be watching very closely to see how you're doing. Yeah.
I appreciate it. I'll definitely be in touch because those people not leveraging AI, I plan to buy their books of business. So that's right.
There you go. Love it.